Do, 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 do. Welcome to the Friends with Benefits podcast, a business podcast about revenue-generating partnerships, not a podcast about business time with friends. We're your co-hosting couple. I'm Jason.
And I'm Sam. Welcome to the show, friends.
Welcome back to the show, friends. We have officially made it to double digits. Sam, congratulations. We've done it.
Our work here is done.
Work here is done. People are actually listening. I mean, a few, like my mom has sent it to all of her clients back home. So that's, half of them. And, the other half are maybe, be actual partner people. But it's been a lot of fun getting to episode 10 with you.
Absolutely.
Today, we've got to go into to kick us off into double digits. We've got the partner pro of partner pros with us. I mean, he's a man who's been around the block and written multiple playbooks probably, and we've probably all used some of them. I think I have. You probably know him as the guy leading partnerships in Sendoso. We're going to open that up a little bit today. And, when he's not playing golf in the microwave, that's Scottsdale, Arizona, he's busy being a model husband and father. We'll talk about that as well. Obviously, I'm talking about the one and only Cory Snyder. Welcome to the show, my man.
Jeez Louise, talk about a build. I used to you to do intros for me constantly.
Yeah, I'm starting a new business where I write intros for people. Yeah. I can be contracted at Yarby.
Professional hype man.
Yes, professional hype man is exactly it.
That's I could do some damage there. I think it'd be a lot of fun. How are you?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on. I'm stoked. I've been jealous. I've been watching all these episodes, and I'm like, hey, I'll take number 10. First time in double digits. I'll be that guy.
We've been kind of having some back channels with Braden. Braden, if you're listening, I know you are. Sorry that Cory made it on before you. It is a partner podcast.
I mean,
I was gonna say Braden's gonna be pretty bummed.
Yeah. I'm gonna rub it in.
Yeah, please. Yeah, we'll give him the swag. Make him like an honorary guest.
Yes.
So let's kick this thing off. And to kick it off, I can't think of any better way than to kind of address the elephant in the room, if I may. The swag elephant. See, Sam, Cory, you guys are kind of competitors, and we've got you on the podcast here. So I just wanted to kind of address this. Like, are we cool here? Like, we're not gonna have to like separate you guys, mute anybody. Like,
Cory, I just want to start off by saying this is not being recorded, so whatever you want to say will not be held against you.
Yeah.
I think we have an NDA in place, all right?
Yeah, what's interesting, though, is, and I'll be quick on this one, is like, I know almost everybody that was in partnerships at all these other organizations that would be considered competitors. And at the end of the day, it's like we're in the business of relationships and friendships. And so, and like, as soon as Sam was at that event, I think it was probably Salesforce's event, I was like, I got to talk to Sam. And get an understanding of who she is and what she does for a living, what makes her successful, and realize there's a relationship here that's going to go beyond these companies. And that's what I care about personally. So there's obviously no issues here. So.
Exactly.
Love that. Yeah, actually, you and I met at Dreamforce, I think.
Yes, that's
where
it was.
Face-to-face. Mike Stalker was there. We just did an episode with him, which he's great. So I love what you just said, because Jason and I feel that in our bones. That's literally why we started this podcast, and a good segue into what I wanted to ask and what we ask all of our guests first. So, Cory, in the context of partnerships in B2B SaaS, what does Friends with Benefits mean to you?
That's a good question. Obviously, the benefits piece is really how do we generate revenue together, right? Like if I'm in a partnership and I'm doing all the work, or they're doing all the work, then there's a level of reciprocity that I'm not following through with. And so, like, in the business of relationships, in the business of driving revenue together, that's my entire goal. Every partner I talk to is like, if we are not successfully driving you revenue and vice versa, then we need to figure something else out. And to me, that is the definition of business Friends with Benefits, is exactly that. It's like, how do we generate revenue together? I worked with agencies where we generated up to $4 million together over the course of several years. And that revenue, because they were selling a specific product that I was doing, that revenue specifically came back to me where I got paid on. So it was this reciprocity, this thing that we did. But that's really what it is like, how do we generate revenue together? And then through leveraging those relationships that we have, we pull in the other organizations from the team, right? The other marketing marketing and sales and everybody else, and you create this really cool funnel, I guess would be one of the words, but yeah.
Truly being better together.
Yes, absolutely. Love that.
And having outcomes as a result. I think that's great. So I've heard you say, I'm not in the business of partnerships. I'm in the business of relationships that make money together, which you kind of just dived into a little bit. So for somebody who maybe is new to partnerships and is like, I got to go make money.
Yeah.
How do we start those relationships first to get to the end goal of revenue, money?
Yeah, that's a tough one. What's funny is like you want to test your ability to explain what you do for a living, get in an Uber and have somebody ask you what you do. And then you come up with lines like that and you come up with lines like that and you're like, that was pretty dope actually.
Write it down.
Yeah. So how I've kind of looked at it is like quickest to cash, if you will. I mean, I know that's a methodology within sales and everything else, but the way I look at it is like we now have some of the greatest technology at our fingertips that we didn't have 10 years ago, back when I was doing CSV exports and VLOOKUPs to do overlaps, right? So the quickest way for me in what I've done is like, one, come up with your methodology to where you want to go and what you want to take that relationship. So for me specifically, it is once I have a conversation with a partner, I understand now we can connect and understand our overlaps, whether that's reveal or crossbeam. Reveal. It's at the end of the day, you're doing your overlaps. Once you have an understanding of your overlaps, you automatically know what your customers are in common. You also know what open opportunities do I have that the customer has that the partner has as a customer, and vice versa. So quickest to cash is like, how can I impact pipeline, right? So that's step one. How do I help the AEs get that deal further down the line? So now they're bought into partners. Now you're creating this like methodology of building your champions from the ground up. Kind of thing. But that's the way that I've done is like strategically and tactically. I'm running a big initiative right now where I'm taking, we have 4 partners and we're focused on these 4 partners, and we're taking our prospects that are their customers and we're sending an email to them saying, hey, did you know we have an integration? Did you know this case study exists? Right? So there's a level of the 3 things that I focus on every day: creating pipeline, moving pipeline, and reactivating pipeline. And so you want to get quickest to cash, you want to get quickest to generating revenue, connect the dots with your overlaps, understand where there's an opportunity for you to move pipeline for your partner and your partner to move pipeline for you, and then come up with a strategy and tactics with your marketing team to go after stuff that is not in pipeline that you could generate leveraging the fact that they're your partner's customers.
Well, there you go, people. That's how you run partnerships. We're done here.
That was the fastest podcast ever. Thanks for joining us. So, like in the spirit of like our podcast and relationships, how have you seen that just kind of running that motion with your team in the pipeline, creating, moving, setting up, impact initial relationships internally with your team? We were kind of chatting about this before we hit record, but internal relationships matter just as much as external. So how has that motion coming out the gate, swinging heavy like that, impacted those relationships internally?
If you want sustainable growth, you have to have internal champions and internal relationships, right? You cannot do it on your own. I am right now the sole person doing partnerships at Sendoso with 300 plus partners. The reason I'm able to do that is because I have such a great team of people in marketing, people in sales, people in product that understand the benefit of partners. Now, did they initially? Potentially not. But as I started, like, just to give an example, this quarter, we've done 4 partner webinars with 4 partners. Just this quarter generated thousands of leads. And the reason why is because I went to partners and said, do you want to do a webinar? Would you do the webinar? We'll support it. We'll everything, right? Lower the need from our marketing team to do anything, from just, hey, supporting it from a marketing perspective. Now they're seeing all this influx of leads and all this success that's coming through. Now they're getting bought in. So now I have them asking me, hey, we have an opening in August, September. Can you go find a partner to do a webinar with? So now I have them pushing me to get partners pulled in. The account executives, we have a pilot we're running with HubSpot, and we're doing some stuff with other partners. The account executives now are leveraging partners to help them move their pipeline. Like, I have one account executive that's talking to 3 CSMs about his deals at HubSpot next week. Again, awesome. You just have to get in there, understand their KPIs, understand what they want, and how do your partners play a role in that. And you build this really, really good relationship with them because you're helping them hit their metrics, their bottom line, what makes them look good internally.
Yeah, and you got to establish that level of trust with them first. Like, show them the value, show them what the partners can bring to the table. Once they start trusting you, then they're like, oh, there's more opportunities in this well. Cory's holding the keys of the well. Let me get in there. So
exactly.
That's got to be, I think, with every role, every time you take a new program on, I think that's got to be step one, is how do you build these internal relationships. And one of the things I really want to talk to you about, it kind of aligns with that, is that you've been doing this for, 13 years now? Has partnerships even been a thing that long?
Yeah, since like 2000. Yeah, since like 2010 or so. Yeah, I don't know about that, but I know there was some pain points for sure back then in 2010 when I started doing partnerships. It was before I was in the role. I actually started doing partnerships because one, I was an account executive and I was extremely competitive, and I knew that if I could increase my conversion rate, I could dominate when it came to conversion rates, no problem. Because I was luckily enough, I figured out what I was good at in life. But then I transitioned from that to say, well, why don't I just go get my own SGLs? Why not self-generated leads? Why don't I just go find people that will send me stuff? So I started hunting partnerships. And so I started gapping people by 2 months of revenue for the year. And it was 100% due to partnerships. And so like a year later, the CEO came to me and said, hey, we're starting this team. You want it? And I said, hell yeah, I want it. And here we are.
That's amazing. Yeah. Just a little bit of grit and hard work.
Yeah.
You just said something like you figured out what you were good at in life. What'd you figure out?
I love talking with people, and I love understanding what they're trying to accomplish. So I love sales. I've always loved sales. I will continue to love sales. Somebody sent me a LinkedIn connection the other day, and in their subject, their title was "I hate sales," and immediately I did not accept it.
Decline.
Yeah. But yes, so I love partnerships and I love sales, but I figured out early on that I love to talk to people. I love to understand, like, curious, tons of curiosity, of like, how are they making money? You know what I mean? Like, there's businesses names out there. I'm like, how the heck does that make any sense? Like, how are they making money? And so just being inquisitive and trying to understand what that is. And then, I figured out early, like, I knew how to dive into people's motivation, like true motivation. What are they struggling with? What's their pain point? What's going on in life? And then how does that tie into the product that I'm offering? Can I solve a pain point? Can I solve a problem for them? And if I didn't, I passed them to one of our competitors that just did something better. And that's just the way I've always ran it. So I got to a point where I would have half of my sales would be dead ops that would just come back to life. And it was just people coming back because they're like, hey, you treated me well. I remembered your name, and boom, here we are. So I think that's what back then it was relationships too. That's what I cared about.
So over the course of these 13 years, and you've built and scaled multiple programs, is there any sort of commonality or red thread that runs through all these programs that you've built that's kind of led to your success? Like, what are you replicating over and over?
Yeah, it came down to obviously tons and tons of mistakes. There's a couple of them. We had one of my companies I worked for, we had an award called the Swing and a Miss. And you literally got an award. Yeah, you got an award for like getting after it. And even if you fell on your face, you still like made the attempt. And I probably would have won that every day for the first 4 years of my partnership career. What I realized early on was that like our CSMs were telling us and our customers were telling us who to partner with already. Like, I didn't have to get creative. I didn't have to like think outside the box. I could just literally,
they were already talking about them.
Yeah, I could literally go listen to gong calls, or I could go sit on the phone with them. Back then it was called Y Connect. If you remember that, then you know how old you are. But you'd go and you'd tap into the Y Connect and you'd literally listen to their calls and be like, okay, this is the integration that we're talking about. This is where they're losing deals. This is where we're gaining deals. This is where they're referred by. Oh, listen, they have a marketing agency they're working directly with, creates our content. I'm like, cool, I need to launch an agency program. Cool, I need to launch this. And so that's where I generated was always ICP. So now part of my methodology when I go into a company or I go into an organization is I look at specifically who their ICP is, where their issues, where are their points where things are falling, right? We're losing churn, reducing, not using it, whatever. And that's where I start. I start with ICP to understand our IPP, our ideal partner profile, if that helps.
Yeah, I love it. Kind of the aspect of listening with intention, and understanding the ICP, understanding the pain, understanding the problems, and helping how you can solve that via the partners that you've been listening to already.
That's what I wrote down too. When you were just chatting, was listen. And I think that is not just in one facet of the business, but you were listening to your customers as to where your roadmap or your integration strategy should go. You were listening to your AEs of what they need, what makes them tick. I've also heard you talk about when you talk to new partners, you really try to break down the barriers of starting that conversation with what's working, what's not. Really tell me. This is like one of the first things you said you do when you meet new partners. How do you ensure that it doesn't stop there? Like, do you formalize coming back to this conversation with your partners via like QBRs, or how do you continually check in and not just like get an autopilot and move forward?
Yeah, it's a good question. So one is I tried, again, methodology, super important, right? So back in the day, I called it BHAG, which is called Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd have this planner that you just create as an Excel document. It's like, who's the partner? What are their goals in trying to accomplish? And then what are the initiatives that play into it? Who owns it? So it's whether it's you or the partner. So you'd go through this whole process. Now I've just come up with where I feel my methodology and what I'm able to do. And so I have a path that I execute on, which is, again, leveraging that cross-beam reveal data to basically say like, okay, we have customers in common. Let's go find customer story. Let's not stop there though. Let's move on to the next step, which is like, what opportunities do you have that we can help close and give you some insight on, and vice versa. And so really it's just like creating steps, just like a customer. You have to create a step for these partners. And if they execute and they're doing it, then I'm in there with them too. So the amount of energy you put in, I'm going to match. And so really that's where it comes down to. And then you try to drive success. If I can drive them a win, boom, they're going to then have a win themselves.
Yeah.
So that's what I've tried to do, is just have like a path.
The other thing I've heard you say over and over in our, what are we at now, 15, 20 minutes, is listen, but then more importantly, execute. And I think those are two very easy things, but not often done. So there's your path to success.
Most often not done, like people aren't executing on what they heard. I think, most people listen just for the sake of like making you feel good, but not many people are saying like, hey, here's what I've heard and here's what we've done, right? And executing for the sole purpose of, delivering that value based off what you heard. And I think there's so much value and richness in that.
Absolutely.
Agreed. Sorry if there's background noise. My kids are home, so pure chaos.
Part of the deal.
Love it. Welcome to 2023.
We literally locked them outside. So
in Arizona summer.
I was gonna add, there's a pool, so they're swimming. So somebody's watching them.
Come on in, kids. It's fine.
Yes.
Man, all right. Let's pivot for just a second and talk a little bit about change. But collectively here in this podcast room, we've got 2 decades of experience in partnerships, right? And right now, I think we're probably experiencing more change in the partnership industry, or whatever you want to call it, than ever before. Specifically, like, we're seeing more and more people with a job title of director, partner manager, whatever it might be. You've got consultants, you've got a couple hundred technology players now, finally getting acceptance at the C-suite level. Like, what does Cory Snyder make of all this, and where do you see it going? Like, what's becoming of this tiny little thing of partnerships that's now becoming a mega thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a loaded question.
We're here for the loaded heavy questions.
Yes, because if you talk to a lot of people, the reason why there's been a lot of layoffs on the partnership side is because they weren't tied to revenue, right? There's an attribution issue. And I'm stealing that from Jason because I know that you said that. There's an attribution issue. I read that.
Trust,
but it is
trust
true.
attrition.
Yes, and it is true. I mean, I had a conversation today with my teams, and we're talking about like, how do I articulate the impact I'm making on partnerships, right? We just did 4 webinars with partners and we generated thousands of leads. It's like, okay, great. Is that influence? Is that generated? Like, what is that? And I think even to today, we're still struggling with that. I would tell you, though, it's way better than it was 10 years ago, because 10 years ago, my marketing team had nothing. They didn't want to do anything with me. Like, it was attribution. It was like, nope, you didn't touch this. It's all us. And nope, this is you. And I'm not going to do anything with you, because if I do that, then that's time that I'm spending away from my attribution of my KPIs. And so for me, it was just, it was a tie to revenues. Like, how do you tie yourself to revenue? How do you tie yourself to impact? But the thing is a lot of people are tying themselves to just either AEs, or they're tying them to something. For me, I'm literally, that's the reason why I'm focused on creating pipeline, marketing, moving pipeline, sales, reactivating pipeline, also sales. But what goes into that reactivating pipeline and pipeline is also renewals.
Yeah.
So now I'm on customer success and account management, helping them look at, hey, the prospect has gone dark, or the new customer has gone dark on renewal. Do you know anybody? Do you have a partner that we can pull in? Blah, blah, blah. So to give you a kind of a loaded answer, I think a lot of people were laid off because of the way they were articulating specifically the impact they were making. And it was them articulating that impact, not the entire company articulating the impact.
Right.
That is in my opinion, that's the difference. And I'm gonna do this at Catalyst. My talk is around creating internal champions from the bottom up. That is the idea. It's like, if I can get an army to be like, Cory, because I'm the only one on the team. Otherwise, I'd say we. But Cory is like, he's helped me here, here. And if I can get that, then when I talk to my executive team, they're just like, hey, it sounds like you're doing a great job. I heard from Jake, I heard from Spencer, I heard from so-and-so, right? So it's, you want to save your ass, right? Which is what I mentioned to Will at one of the events, is like, get other people to tell the executives your impact. That's how you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, I experienced that firsthand at Drift, and we kind of had the same issue with the marketing team. Not a whole lot of thought from like the beginning stages with strategy to bring partners in, but once you begin to change that mindset, like our pal Justin Keller began like singing the praises of partners and Tav and some of those guys, like just talking about all the leads and revenue and everything else we were driving. And so like then sales began to like, oh, maybe we should perk up a little bit more. And then over time, like it began to swell. And the whole, near bound strategy of being fully embedded into your field teams began to take effect.
Yes.
But right, you got to get others talking about it. It can't just be you. You would die on that hill alone, man.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's what ultimately happened is like, I think also there's a level of like, everybody got bought into partnerships. Like, oh, we have to have a partner program because everybody's saying we have to have a partner program. And they did not start with the ICP. They did not start with like a path or a playbook, or you got other people like Will Taylor and Justin Zimmerman that have literally said, oh, I'm in partnerships now. I'm going to call every single person I know that's in partnerships, and I'm going to ask them how to do my job. Right. And it's been probably the smartest move they've ever did, because they blew up. They understood it super quick. Their ability to understand partnerships and soak in all of this knowledge happened extremely fast, because we are all open to giving our knowledge, right? But we're not like, no, this is my IP. We're like, no, take it. Go make this successful.
Yeah, that's a great point too.
One of the things that it's like, yeah, we're willing to share it, but you got to put in the work. It's that listen and execute again. It's like, listen to many podcasts as you want, but if you're not going to do it and you're not going to be a good person, show up and then execute on it, then sorry.
Yeah, out of 20 sales reps, when I was selling, doing this partnership, I gave everybody the information. One did it out of 20.
Isn't that wild? Like, if pretty much got the answers to the test, and only one people are going to use that cheat sheet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get out of your comfort zone a little bit, right? I mean, yeah.
So I want to shift gears yet again, and I want to talk about, this is so timely, your kids are in the background, which we love that. More power to you and them. Bringing your whole self to work. We've seen you post a few times about managing stress, work-life balance. This is not something that's talked about that often or enough. The relationship you have with yourself and how that can impact literally everything. Your results at work, your home life, all of it. Are you willing to share a little bit more about that with us and how you approach that?
Yeah, for sure. I think initially you have this, I think imposter syndrome is obviously, unfortunately, it's becoming more of a buzzword than it should be, but imposter syndrome to me, I always say it's when you first start a place. You've earned your like dream job, potentially you've earned a promotion, and now you're like, oh shit, can I actually do this? Am I smart enough? Do I know what I'm talking about? It's like, sometimes that's where that right there is why you need friendship. That's why you need people that you can talk to.
Absolutely.
Yarby and I we talked last week about some stuff as well. And we were able to like talk as professionals, as friends about just like what's going on in our worlds. Right. And it's like, do you have the knowledge? Do you have the understanding? Yes, you do. Right. But maybe you need a little bit of guidance to say, where's your weakness, to try to dial it in. That's why you need friends and you need other people that you can trust with that have other skill sets you may not have. Right. And so by being able to articulate that and actually say that. And so I've been I pushed on the mental awareness stuff for men specifically because we just don't talk about it as a weakness for us. And partially that is because we were born with this partially to say like, no, I don't share feelings. I don't share things I'm struggling with. I'm going to internalize them. And to an extent that can be considered empowering at times. But really what it is it is completely stunting your growth and your ability to be a better human and to be a better friend and to be a better husband and a father and the whole nines, a brother, whatever it may be. And so I've been trying to be a little bit more out there. I put together a golf outing with about 8 individuals. I've been doing it the last 4 years, and it's literally in June. And the whole purpose of that is June is Men's Mental Awareness Month. Every June, I get together with 8 dudes. We go golfing for 3 days. We talk about life. Like we played cards, but we were talking about life. Like what's going on in your world? These are guys that none of them outside of one was in software, and half the time none of them are in software. So I get this cool perspective from my brother who's like in construction for 25 years, right? And where he's dealing with and the way he's going across. But for me, for the most part, I've always talked shit about myself, lack of better words. And it's always just been a weakness of myself. I don't know why. But the more that I can open up and have those conversations with individuals, like you guys with other friends, be like, Cory, like not to boast yourself, but there's probably some validity in there because you're not doing something you should be doing as far as executing and laziness or whatever it may be. But then there's the other piece that's like, dude, you've literally in 6 years, you've gone from a director, VP, and you've built an entire sales team at that last organization, built partner programs from the ground up. Like there's something to be proud of. Don't let it go to your head, obviously, but remember your wins. We just don't remember our wins, unfortunately. And I think, I'm not saying this is just a male thing. I just think males don't talk about this stuff. And you see the suicide rates are increasing specifically in the males. And I want to help stop that. If I can communicate it around mental health or even physical health. Like I went through some health stuff for a year that I didn't tell anybody about outside of some of my family. And it was like the most mental draining, the most damaging place I've ever been in my life while I was working a full-time job, while I was supporting my family as a sole provider, right? And I learned a lot there of saying like, screw that. Go talk to some people, like show some vulnerability. They're not going to laugh at you. They're not going to point fingers. They're going to pick you up. They're going to support you where you need to be supported. So anyways, tangent, but like I'm super passionate about that because I think we need to talk about it as a whole.
It's a perfect answer. I love it. And where did this journey start for you? Like how'd you start with this journey, and how do you encourage others to go about that, like starting that journey for themselves?
Yeah, I think it actually came from other individuals, friends that came to me. Actually, I wouldn't say man enough, but I wasn't even opened to even sharing this stuff. It's almost because when you say this is your problem, you're accepting it now. And there's a level of fear of accepting I have a problem, right? Yeah. And so when you get to that point, you say, okay, I have a problem. So I had other individuals come to me and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. And we're friends. And I'm like, bro, so am I. Like, let's talk through it. Let's come up with a path. Let's have that communication. Let's figure some of that out. And that's really, I think, where it came from. And at that point in time, I was like, screw this. I don't care, like, what people think about me outside of my friends. Like, I do care. Like, if people want to judge me for having a mental illness conversation, then screw you. Go away, But otherwise, you have all these other people that I know are true friends. They're going to back me up, and they're going to join. And I couldn't believe, like, the post, 2 of those posts got a bunch of people that I'd never talked to before, and now I'm connected with, right? And hopefully I made an impact to one person. That's all really I care about. But
yeah, I love that. And I had almost 10 years ago to the day, like I had a very similar kind of thought. My experience was a lot rougher to figure that out. I have to learn the hard way. And self-worth, self-love, and just kind of, showing up for yourself was kind of an issue that I had to address for myself, and how I talk to myself and kind of bring myself into, the community. And once I figured that out, like the whole world began to change. Shortly after that is when I met Sam, and don't think that could have happened without going through that whole, set of issues and figuring things out. And I think it's a very relevant talk to the work that we do, because a lot of times partner people sit on an island. People don't understand the work we do. They don't understand what we're bringing to the table. We're not feeling understood. If we're not, crushing some numbers and hitting those pipeline goals and everything else, it's like, oh, partners don't work. So like we're not feeling validated in our work half of the time, probably more so. That's why I think, communities like Partnership Leaders and others that are out there now for partnerships is really taken off, because we've got people who understand and talk about it. And so like the ability to bring your whole self into this role, like I think you've got to have, some foundation of this to be a partner person.
Oh, you have to. I mean, you're getting beat up.
Well, no doubt. And I mean, what I was just going to add there is I think being able to talk about this stuff, you said it, but it makes you human. And at the end of all of this, we're building relationships with other humans. And so in order to be successful in your role, you kind of have to break down these barriers that we set for ourselves in order to be relatable with other people. And it's not unique to men. I think men struggle with it through different lenses than women do.
We just hide it better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe you don't feel safe talking about it, or you don't have the right groups to talk about it with, so I think as a community, helping just each other, we're all humans, gender aside, we all deal with the same stuff. And, I applaud you for taking the effort and the first steps in kind of breaking down those barriers first for you, but then opening up and allowing other people in. I think it's needed more and more.
Yeah, there's the thing that was going around that was like, normalize telling your friends you love them, right? And why not?
I'm a big believer in that.
I'm a hugger. I hug everybody, and that's partially because I love hugs. So
same. You and I are kindred souls, Cory Snyder.
This is true.
Yeah.
We were messaging earlier about being criers, so like I'm also, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm a crier. I'm a very vulnerable person, so I'm okay with that. So this whole self-worth, whole self thing, apart from posting on LinkedIn about like how else are you bringing this into the job and into your daily life, from in the 9 to 5?
Yeah, it's kind of like at the end of the week, I try to have like a moment where I'm like, okay, what did you accomplish this week? Right. But not just professionally. Right. So like my wife and I created what would be considered like a vision board, but it was like, what are the things we want to accomplish this year, personally and professionally? And so there's like this temp check, if you will. Like at the end of the week, I try to remember Fridays. I block out majority of my Friday, and part of that Friday is preparing for the next week, but it's also completing stuff I needed to complete this week. And then it's also going through all the stuff that was completed this week that I should report on, right? And so it's kind of understanding like, hey, that relationship that was dead, I was able to kind of recover that. We now have a conversation and haven't had a conversation for a year. That's a win, right? Nice. We've been able to work with HubSpot. Now we're part of this sales pilot. Like that's a massive win. We just got our first referral from this agency in 3 months, whatever, right? Look, trying to figure out what those wins are, personally or professionally, and then also personally, right? Like I didn't blow up on my kids this week. No,
a win.
It would be, goals, exactly, goals. It would be like I sat down and had one-on-one time with my daughter talking about life and kind of what she's going through, right? I have 5 kids, and the ages range from, she's gonna be 20 this year all the way down to 8. So I have this really cool experience where I get to see this different mindset in the world, and they're different conversations, and they're all enjoyable. Like one, I'm helping her learn how to read. The other one, I'm like, you have a boyfriend now? What the heck's going on? Like, are you being smart? It's like what, but like today she got she was supposed to go into work and work double shift, and she worked 2 hours and they sent her home. And so I'm like, bro, you got to find another job. You need to find one that appreciates the effort that you're putting in. So it's like this cool thing where it's like, at the end of the day, I can sit down and I can say, here's what I accomplished personally. Here's what I accomplished professionally. You have to, but at the same time, as a parent, you also are in your head like, I shouldn't have yelled at him. I shouldn't have done that, right? So you also have these negative things going back at you. Be like, oh, I need to be a better parent. When you just at literally 30 minutes in a week, you lost your cool, and the other 10 hours you freaking kicked ass, and you're just like, why think about the 30, right? My kids forget about it, right? But they don't forget all the other things that I did with them. So now we're transitioning to personal stuff, but like, that's what I do is every Friday I try to have just that come to Jesus kind of conversation with myself around what I was able to accomplish and what I got done, and have like a real conversation that I use my time effectively and so on, if that helps.
You kind of talked about this with like your golf trip in June, or, you know, I'm going to go here in a second, but your relationships with your wife and your kids.
Yeah.
Do you have any accountability partners outside of your family that you are calling on to, like, so you're not carrying this burden on your own, that you're working with people on?
Yeah, mostly it's just friends here and there. So I have like a core group of like 5 or so that I would say, because I mean, I have tons of friends, right? We all have tons of friends, but we have our core group that's like individuals you can talk about anything with, right? And, you know, obviously there's some that are in the industry, which helps, right? Because then you have this balance check. Be like, you know, hey, Yarby, what'd you do today? What'd you do this week? Yo, what I don't know, Cory, what'd you do this week? And so you have this cool temp check, and you also can, you can check to see, are you on the right path? Like, the way the world is evolving, are you on the right path? So to answer your question, yes, I have them both on the personal and professional side of people that I try to connect with on a regular basis. Even if it's just to say, yo, how you doing? You know?
Bruh. Yeah.
Just
100%.
Yeah. And for me, partially, it's selfish. It's for me too. Like,
well, it goes back to what you said first. Like, it's probably doing just as much for them, if not more.
Yeah.
You just don't know it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as much as you want to be seen, other people want to be seen and helped, right? And they want to know that the relationship is mutually beneficial and reciprocal. And I love what you just said about like just accountability and checking in with your peers, right? How do we, you know, as partner leaders who do sit on an island, help each other become more accountable to the work we're accomplishing and kind of holding each other up, right? What are your goals with your partner program this quarter? Cool. Let's work on those, you know, together, at least keeping accountable, and how do we coach each other to success? I mean, there's a lot to that.
Yeah, and I would also say now that like my wife has no idea for the most part, even though I've been in this for a long time. She has an idea, right? But she's still supported. Like the Yarbys, you guys are literally a powerhouse, which is impressive to see how you guys have been able to balance out with kids and life. But it is true, having somebody that you can lean on that understands you and understands your problems or understands your concerns and all that kind of good stuff, whether they know about the business or not, is irrelevant. Their ability to listen, to be able to add some color there as far as like, hey, I heard you do this, or I heard you saw this, or hey, blah, 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 or whatever it may be. Having those individuals as well as a significant other is extremely powerful as well. I mean, I can only imagine the conversations you guys had. You probably try not to talk about work, because then it becomes like,
it gets boring. I'll tell you that much.
That's what I mean. That would suck.
It's hard not to talk about it. Sometimes it's boring, sometimes it's fun, and you know the podcast now is keeping it fun and learning and growing together and figuring out, you know, what other people are doing. So something new to talk about. I'll
love it.
I'll wrap this segment up by just kind of putting out a PSA for those that are, you know, kind of feeling like they're on an island, need somebody to talk to. I think the 3 of us here would be more than happy to, you know, field a DM, a Slack message via, you know, partner leadership if you're there, or whoever it might be. Like, if you're feeling like you need someone to help you out, you're feeling alone or need some accountability or whatever it might be that we just talked about, like, by all means, man, reach out to us. Like, I'd be more than happy to have this conversation every single day with someone new.
Yeah, no judgment here.
Second, third that motion. Okay, so let's shift. We've kind of talked about this a little bit. We can hear your kids in the background. You have 5 of them, as you've mentioned. That is no joke. We only have 2.
Yeah, that's why I'm so good at commission plans and partner programs.
I mean, seriously, probably. Very, very high motivation. So I want to just talk about how you manage having a successful career, but also prioritizing the relationships with your 5 kids, with your wife. From the outside looking in, being a husband and a father seems to be absolutely number one for you. But yet you continually show up as a leader in your career, in the space. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, 8 to 5, Sendoso has me, right? For the most part. At the end of the day, like when I grew up, my parents weren't necessarily there to support me in my activities. That's because my dad worked 2 jobs, right, to support his family. There were 6 in my family, right? So I didn't really have that support function. So when I grew up, I had a rule that I would be at every single event that I can be at for my kids. One year I flew home on my son's birthday. Just like I literally flew out to Canada, did an event, and then left halfway through that event, flew home so I could be home for his birthday. Because it's that important to me in that sense. But like with my kids, I've been to every dance competition. In the dance studio, they do dance pretty much five times a week. I'm at the dance studio. I'm watching them. When COVID hit, I was even doing the dances with them during class. You know, there's
I've seen some videos.
Yeah, probably. We just did the dad's dance for the company recital, and I was part of it. It's like I want to be involved in my kids' lives as much as possible. And I'm to an obnoxious probably setting. I think initially my kids were annoyed by how involved I was, because I would be like, I'm the loud dad. I'm the proud dad. Like if you were watching my kids do a dance competition, and you were watching it online, you would hear me.
We know you're there.
Yes, you know, and it's because I'm like, I want them to know I'm there. I'm for you. I'm with you. And so for me, that was a big move for me, is like, I will be at every single major event at minimum that you have in your life. And I will always, whether it's sports, whatever it is. And then on top of that, like my wife and I have made a rule that we go out every weekend, every Friday or every Saturday, religiously, we will continue to date. And if we have to find babysitters, great, we will. Luckily enough, our kids are old enough to where at this point, we're at this cool pivotal point where they can watch the kids.
Lucky.
I know. And we just did 2 weeks in Europe to celebrate our 20-year anniversary. And we didn't have babysitters. We just left them with the 20-year-old and 16-year-old.
God, there's hope, Jason. You hear that?
Yes. There is hope, but we had to commit. Like my wife thought she was going to just have the breakdown of a century. And as kind of an idea of how we're doing as parents, our kids crushed it. They were totally fine, handled life, went grocery shopping, did everything. And to me, I was like, well, maybe we're doing something right.
Absolutely.
They can survive without us, like to be gone, and we can go enjoy our relationship and travel and do all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, that's been like a rule of ours over the last probably 15 years, is like we go out every weekend. Like that's our time, even if it's grocery shopping. By the way, it's still just us.
Just something together.
Yes.
I also love that, because you're breaking down the, like, we have to go on a date and it has to be fancy and you have to go to the grocery store. That's fine. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I also love what you just said about setting boundaries a little bit and setting goals with your wife. I was listening to a podcast. I'm going to mispronounce his name. Neil Pasricha. He wrote, like, do you know who this is?
I do. I know the name. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And in the podcast, he was talking about how he creates a family contract, which is kind of similar to what you've talked about. But it's like, I will not travel more than 4 days a month. I will be home for all of my kids. And then I loved his perspective, because you create a contract with everybody you do business with. So why wouldn't you do that for your personal life and hold yourself accountable to it? Like, these are the things I've said I'm going to do. And it's just as important, if not more, that I show up for my family and my friends than I do for my business. So I applaud you. I think that's wonderful.
I'll leave this one last thing with you.
Okay.
1 second. To prove a point that, because I know we've all been there. So I don't know, 10 years ago or so, my oldest, I was in the bathroom getting ready for work, and she comes up and says, "Dad, we're going on vacation tomorrow, right?" And I said, "Yep." And she goes, "Are you going on vacation?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Are you going on vacation? Because you always work during our vacation." And I'm like, That literally was like a stab in the heart. And from that day on, I said, you know what, you're right. I'm going to shut it off. Or if I do, I'll do it in the early mornings or in the evenings when they're asleep, or it doesn't impact that if I need to get caught up or emergency happens. But that was like a stab in the heart of like, I work while we're doing vacation, so I'm not present. And so from that point on, I'm like, screw it. I don't care. Though I will bust my ass from 8 to 5. But outside of that, I'm going to bust my ass for my family. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, you're there. How much of that do you bring into, like, so when you came to Sendoso, like how much of that factored into this being the right place for you? Like, do you bring that up in conversation? So there's a lot of people out there looking for jobs right now. Like, how old do they get with establishing these boundaries before they even accept the job?
Well, it's interesting is you can listen for different things. So one interview I did, I said, what do you love about the company you work for? And they're like, well, at first I said, dang, it's like 6 o'clock there on a Friday and you're doing this interview.
Yep.
He's like, yeah, that's not uncommon for us here. You know, we're hustlers or break down. I'm like, red flag, not going to happen. And then the second thing I said, what do you love about the company? And he said, I love the people, right? And he goes, I said, okay, explain. He said, well, I didn't come here to make friends. You know, we all came here to get stuff done. And while I agree with that methodology, I've worked for companies where that created this unfortunate place to work for and the culture sucked. So you can listen for those things and kind of get an understanding of how they feel about work-life balance. And so literally that was like, I think a third interview I had when I was talking with Sendoso. And I was like, I emailed them, said, hey, I'm not interested. And they had recruited me. And I was like, sorry, I don't think you meet with my values in life. Like, I don't mind working here and there late, but when the guy's like, this is a norm, I'm doing stuff 6 or 7 o'clock at night. Like, I got kids, I got other stuff I got to take care of.
Right.
So to me, you can listen for those that ask specific questions to get an understanding of what the response is going to be. And that's exactly what I was testing. I was testing culture and work-life balance.
Yep.
But at the same time, I say that with somebody who has a job. So I also understand how other people are feeling. Is like, I'm going to take what I can get. And to an extent, I think, you know, I would potentially do the same thing.
I mean, it goes back to when you start a job, right? Like, you know, I think you have to kind of come in this with boundaries of what you want out of a job. Like, life's too short, and you know, we can tie this all back together by saying when you start building a new program, you're listening. In the interview stage, you're listening, but also like you should have an ideal employer profile, an IEP. We're just making up all sorts of new synonyms on this podcast.
I like it.
So going into who your ideal employer profile looks like, you know, understanding that, and you're listening. When that clicks and you understand it, like, then it aligns with your values and goals, and you know you can be successful there, not only as a partner leader, but as a person. Like, you should feel like you can be successful as a person where you work. Agreed.
Okay, so we're almost up on time here, and we typically like to end these podcasts with an out of the norm, more fun question. So staying on theme, I'm going to stay on theme twice here. Jason and I have date night tonight. So, Cory, what's your BDE? Best date night ever. What should we do?
Oh, man. I mean, you guys got a different scene in Montana, though. So, because I was going to say, like, maybe some cow tipping.
Well, I mean, that's very doable here.
Yeah, it's on the list.
What's the temperatures like?
Oh, it's gorgeous.
80
and sunny.
Okay. I'm thinking small hike, picnic.
It's exactly what we were talking about at lunch today.
Settled.
Love it. Yeah, maybe with some bubbly, you know. Oh, actually, never mind, Jason. You went to not drink.
No, like the actual just branded bubbly.
Cans. I've got blackberry bubbly in the refrigerator. So yeah,
there you go. I'm a Kirkland fan, you know. So
yeah, same thing. Yeah. Nice. Do you have a most memorable date of recent with your wife that you can share, and that's safe?
Yeah, I mean it's tough because we just spent 2 weeks and it's safe.
Yeah,
that's
Europe.
Yeah.
We just spent 2 weeks in Europe, and it was just epic, like walking around and doing the stuff we were able to see. And but I would have to say, from a joy perspective, see my wife's face when we pulled up to the Airbnb in Amsterdam, and below our Airbnb is a cow museum. And
Cow?
my wife is cow. And my wife is infatuated with cows, loves them. And so we walk up and her face, she almost started crying. She was
Did you
so
know this?
happy. So I would like to say I did, but I didn't know it till like a couple days before. But it was intuition, right? Like,
Yeah, you
good
just know.
husband
The
kind of thing,
universe
for
was
sure.
telling you something.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, so that was probably, I wouldn't say a date, but it was one of my most memorable moments was just seeing her that excited and that happy. And then throughout that, it was certain things because she's Dutch descent. So it'd be like getting a poffages or getting a stroopwafel and certain things. But yeah.
That's
Love it.
outstanding. Love it. Now we've got to go. We got to get the link to that Airbnb.
Yes.
Man, this has been so much fun. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for letting us go to some vulnerable places and talk about, self and worth and all that. I think it's very valuable for us to talk about and share as professionals and leaders. So it's been great having you, man.
Thanks for
Absolutely.
asking those questions. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have a whole other podcast around Cory's swing and misses because I'd love to hear some of those stories and kind of how we can learn from those.
Yeah, no doubt. There's plenty.
Love you, man. Thanks a lot. Talk soon.
Bye, Cory.
Do, 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 do.